are you listening to? Straight Talk with Kim and Carolyn.
Welcome to another episode of Straight Talk with Kim and Carolyn. I'm Carolyn.
I'm Kim.
And we are here with some updates from the legislature.
So much happening so fast.
So much.
I mean, we're at the end almost the end of second week.
Yeah. And it feels like 4 weeks in, I think. Yeah, for a lot of us. And we will be speaking tonight to Representative Walt Brooks, who had the vaccine passport bill last year and again this year. HB 131 is what it is this year. And then we'll be talking to Representative Katy Hall, who's a new representative, about some election stuff. So welcome. Glad you could.
We've rounded out with, do we have Kennedy on tonight?
I think that's in a different episode.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. So, but welcome this evening. Representative Brooks, we're so glad you could join us. Thank you for taking the time in this busy season of your life.
Yeah, you bet. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So, as we mentioned, a lot is going on with HB 131, right?
Correct.
Well, can we just talk about, like, yours was one of our favorite bills last year
Yes.
that had all kinds of shenanigans. This is very frustrating, angering. This was just sidelined with all the worst things that are cultural and procedural to the legislature. And so we're excited that you're back with a similar bill.
And can we say, while all that was going on behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, I think, do you know this for sure, Representative Brooks, if your bill was the hearing on your bill was the most attended hearing of any ever up at the state capitol?
I think it was. I mean, I've heard that it was, but we know that there's a lot of people who come for things, but man, 4 rooms were completely full.
Yeah.
And everybody was there and passionate, and they had to come back like for the Senate hearing.
Yeah.
Well, and this was, and to remind our viewers, this was also the bill that free speech was shut down by leadership in both chambers and in both houses. And so the side show of your bill was some really the worst things in government was the people being shut down in really incredible ways. But is that happening this year?
Well, I have to say that in the House that didn't happen because I was the vice chair.
Okay.
And we let people wear their stickers and give thumbs up and express themselves in a quiet way.
In a constitutional way? In a constitutionally protected way.
Stickers, yes.
As Kim, it's the rules of the House. I mean, there's the rules of decorum where you can't hold big signs, you can't yell and disturb the conversation. But I'll tell you, this year, the people who wrote emails were fantastic. They were short, they were to the point, they identified themselves where they lived, they said this is important to me, and they were professional, they were polite. Because when you come off mean, you just get deleted. I mean, no one pays attention to those. You get so many of them, but everybody's email was fantastic. All the people that came, they were passionate in their speech, but they were maintained decorum, and it was so great. I got compliments from other people saying that was a great meeting because everybody got to share their experience. And what I thought was the best part was no one opposed. We had so many people speak, but no one in opposition.
Yeah, what's the big difference? And by the way, something else intervening happened in the last year. You got reelected, which, is the confidence of the people you represent sent you back with this legislation in part. But
well, it wasn't my haircut, I'll tell you that much. But no, it was great. We brought back the same bill from last year before the Senate tried to substitute it because they tried to get it from the business side. So we brought it back where it went through the House and everything. It was really good. And we still had a lot of opposition still with businesses, particularly the chambers, some manufacturing and stuff. And so we went and said, how can we resolve this? How can we get people on board? Because this has got to pass. Yeah. We need to get through it. It's very important. And so we looked through HB 63, which had a lot of similarities to HB 60 last year. And some of the verbiage in there talked about businesses with a nexus with facilities that had regulations, like a hospital. And that was the concern, is like, what if I'm AT&T and I have to go into the hospital? Or what if I sell brooms and I go to the hospital? Even though my employer doesn't really require mandates, I still have to have one to get in. And so basically clarified that if your business is directly involved with a federal contractor or a hospital that's this is necessary, then you can have require a passport because it's part of your job.
Okay, what if it's not directly and not having read all the details of the bill?
Primary, yeah, it's a primary function of your job.
Primary function. So if you're a caterer and you have to cater at a hospital event, you don't have to have a vaccine, submit to vaccine requirement.
Obviously, if you don't have a vaccine passport, they probably won't have you cater that event. But if it's part of your job to cater that event, then you'd need a passport.
Well, but if it's not, your primary function as a caterer is not to serve food at a hospital, that's an ancillary and incidental.
Well, hopefully you won't go then, right?
Or if you deliver balloons or flowers to the hospital, I guess they don't allow balloons anymore, but you're, delivering flowers to the hospital, then do you have to flash a vaccine passport?
No, if you don't want to, because you want to do it, right?
No, I mean, if you want to deliver flowers, do you have to produce?
You know the answer to that.
No, I don't know.
Code requires it. So if you want to go into the hospital, you have to show your vaccine passport.
Wow.
Well, actually, no, I take that back. It's in certain parts of the hospital, you have to have a vaccine passport. To go in, you don't.
Oh.
They have other means, like a mask or something like that, they make you put on.
Okay.
So there are ways. But if you're getting back and you're in the back rooms or whatever, and they require it, then you would need it. That's just.
Yeah. Wow. When are we? Okay. So I guess we'll have to keep working on this. So, all right. What are
would you go into more detail about what happened last year? So people were all over this, clamoring for this. There were business interests who wanted to shut it down. And on the last night of the session, it looked like it was going to be a done deal. It was sent to the Senate. They amended it, and it died, basically. Tell us about that.
So that's something that we're doing different this year, and it hasn't happened this way for quite a while, is the Rules Committee is way more open and transparent than it has in recent years. And so big bills can get out quicker. And I think it's a great thing, because that's why we saw like HB 215 with the school vouchers. We've seen the transgender get through, because if not, they all build up at the end. And that kind of lack of vision, I think, creates fear, and fear creates anger. And so last year, that's what it did. It kind of got hung up because it was kind of controversial. So it kind of stayed in the system, and it came out late, way late. And that was disappointing. I don't know why, but probably because it was controversial, and the rules chair has that authority to try to manage the flow. And it got out, but we thought it was going to be fine, right? We got it through the House committee, we got the House floor, and then the Senate, which I love those guys, but they kind of screwed it up. And one in particular, and they took out the meatiest part, and that was the business part of it. And we could have passed it, but it would have done nothing. It really would have done nothing for people, because most people, where they're feeling the pain is in their employment part, being discriminated against.
Right.
And so it went through. We can go back to, as you guys both know, you can get it changed and then come back for concurrence. And if we don't allow it, then we go to a meeting of the minds, and whoever wins the wrestling match wins, right? That's what people think, I guess. But it was right at the very end when it came over.
Yeah.
And there was physically not enough time to get through the process. There was not enough time. It was like, what was it, like 10:35 or something like that when they finally got through, or maybe even close to 11. So all it would have done is taken more time on the floor, trying to get more discussion, and other people's bills would die. Kim, I think you know what that's like, right? With some fresh milk stuff.
Definitely.
It's not fun when you're that legislator and your bill's next, and some bill that's not going to pass anyway is just taking up all the other time.
Yeah.
So out of respect to the other colleagues, I'm saying, that's it, I'm pulling it.
Well, the Senate did that on purpose with some bills last year, too. So, I mean, sometimes that's strategy, too.
Well, it's maybe, but for this bill, I do think the senator that was substituting it, I think he, in his heart, he had good intentions. I just think his intentions were stupid. I mean, so I shouldn't say that, but I just didn't agree. How about I didn't agree with
you? Didn't agree.
Yeah. So and so I took a lot of heat for that, like it was some big conspiracy and all these things were happening. I'm like, things don't always go the way we want them to, and there was a lot of things that kind of got in the road, and blocked us a little bit. and it was extremely frustrating. But to me, time's not always the enemy. And now we got this back, and I think it's basically the exact same bill. The little change that we had was the change that was in another bill that everyone was okay with. And so I'm like, well, let's put it in. And all of a sudden, these big guys that were having issues, like, okay, now that gives us kind of the wiggle room a little bit for we were worried about, like, because I can't shut my business down because the hospital won't let me in.
Right.
And so we got to figure out something. And since we've already had this language, it was already approved. We got it in, and they weren't there with balloons and party favors. Okay, they just said we won't oppose it. We're neutral.
Okay, so I asked that not to kind of the whataboutism, but we have some former guests of this show that are truck drivers, and truck drivers were prohibited from picking up frozen Tyson chicken, where they didn't even go in the factory. They would load a truck, and they weren't allowed to even pick up their loads unless they produced proof of a certain recent vaccine. And, so it's fair to kind of ask, and what are we protecting?
That was a Tyson rule.
Yeah, Tyson rule.
Yeah,
and
that
so
nobody was even allowed on their property.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet there were contracts in place. It's getting food to people. And so we do see that we were seeing that there were some big conglomerate, big corporation who were forcing people into these decisions to risk their health or have a job and put food on the table. And that is a horrible position for individuals to be in. And we were seeing some people side on the side of corporate rights to do this, when, as we know, individual rights constitutionally always protect corporate rights. The corporate rights should be subordinate. But so are the people protected now? Can they work? Can they earn a living? Can they pursue happiness? Or do they have to flash a card to deliver balloons or pick up chicken in Utah?
The title of the bill is Vaccine Passport Prohibition.
Okay.
So it prevents them from requiring it. Basically, the best way to think about this is, think about 2017, all right? Can you do like a little fuzzy thing so we can pretend like we're going back in time, right? We're thinking back to 2017, and someone sneezes, and we say, oh, bless you, and we go on with our life.
Right,
right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what we're getting back to. Those HIPAA laws are in place to make sure that our personal health information, or we call it PHI, is protected. That's why you have to stand 6 feet back at the pharmacy. It's not because you might sneeze on somebody. It's so you can't see that they're getting hepatitis medicine or some other crazy thing or whatever. That's their business. And someone in the committee brought up and says, well, if I'm baking a cake and I have to let people bake a cake, I'm like, yeah, but they don't say, show me if you're a diabetic. I would never get served a hamburger. They're like, you're already a McDouble, dude. I'm not giving you. You don't show that kind of stuff, right? So that's what this does, is it protects your personal health information, and that's really the simplicity of it. Last year, because it was such an emotionally charged issue, rightfully so, it had all these other tangents off to the side of it that made it even more so. And I think with COVID kind of coming down a little bit, we still have issues out there. But some of it coming down, people realize how we didn't hit this very good. When COVID first came out, our previous governor, I think, kind of blew it, and requiring you to put a piece of paper on your business, or you're going to get fined $10,000 and all these other things. We really jumped the gun way fast, and so I think this allowed us to take a step back. And I think most people did realize, hey, this bill is not the big demon that they think for business. But it is protecting our personal health information, like you both said.
So this is interesting because you talk about like that irrational response that a lot of people had with COVID that turned political, right? So it's funny, I was actually in the car with my family the other day, and I was giving an example. It wasn't a COVID example at all, but masks were a part of the example. And one of my boys said, Mom, don't make it political. And I went, wait, what? Masks aren't political. They're like, my point has nothing to do with politics. This is not a political story. But look at this, because it was so politicized by people who wanted to force behavior on other people that my children who were children during that think of all of these issues as being political issues, which they truly are not. They're not.
Well, something I think that it dawned on me, and with the help of some other people that were helping support this and get out and get people involved, is this rings a really weird bell about this year we're studying and going through ESG and preventing some of that really bad behavior, which is government trying to push these things onto people for your social. And I'm like, that's what was happening last year.
Yeah.
This vaccine passport thing was another form of ESG to get people to comply. Because what they were doing was, hey, Tyson Chicken, great example. You can't even come on my property if you don't have this. So it was a business self-regulating another business, right? There was no COVID cops running around. It was business,
good point.
Other businesses. And so it's the exact same pattern as ESG. And I'm like, they're coming at us with all kinds of angles. And so we do have to be a little aware. Or not aware. But these, last year, if you would have said ESG, people would have like, what are you talking about, you crazy person? But now that we're studying ESG, really what the whole purpose, I think I froze up for you, sorry about that. But the whole thing that we're trying to do is the exact same pattern that they tried with the vaccine passports. And so if we stick to our guns and keep back to good, reasonable things, and the way you do is, what did we do before the pandemic hit? Because that was normal.
Yeah.
It really was.
And, I have a long, solid record of not wanting government intrusion and over-regulation. So, but, ultimately, the individual rights, we've really seen just the most, horrific intrusions of civil rights. Not the most horrific in all time, but we were getting to bad places.
Getting pretty close when you're talking about injecting chemicals into somebody else's body by force.
or putting them in camps if they don't.
Yeah.
So
in some areas
we were
of
getting
the
to the
world,
worst parts of human rights abuses. But
we always hear those guys on the left that, well, people are too dumb and we're going to have to drag them to where we think because we're the only smart people, right?
Yep.
But the one part that really kind of concerned me the most was usually ones I would consider more on the right. The ones that would say, that kind of on our team, right? About personal liberties and personal freedoms. But some in that group, I would say the little farther right group would say, no, businesses have the right to do whatever they want.
Yes.
They can require a vaccine passport.
The libertarians.
And Kim, you mentioned this in your kind of intro. The government was set up to protect the individual.
Yep.
Now, corporations and stuff, they're entities, but just because I have my own business doesn't mean my rights supersede yours. It's really about sustaining the individual right.
Yeah.
And if we can do that's really the lowest common denominator we have. And I think that's what we need to realize, that business, allowing them to do what they want to do is important. But there's still this freedom of individual rights that we have to. And the person I had this conversation with goes, well, I think business should say, if I don't like black guys, they can't come in. I don't like, Mexicans, they don't come in, or white people come in. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, it's bad business, right? Then people won't come. But I said, but we as a country have said all men and women are created equal. That means no. If you're going to be open for the public accommodation, you treat people the standard, right? You don't discriminate because of race, religion, sex, gender, and all these different things. Those things.
The other thing he's probably said to you was, they can go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And participate in commerce, but we have enabled just these large mega corporations that the mom and pops are almost non-existent. So there isn't always another place, but we are.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Oh, I was finishing up basically. So basically, I think that we need to actually settle ourselves down and really, what does the Constitution protect? And it's we, the people. And it sounds kind of almost cliche or overdone, but it's true. That's it. That's where we need to be.
You know what? Thank you so much for carrying this last year. That was, I think, probably a nightmare for you that you will remember the rest of your life. But we all appreciate it. And good work.
You're one of the great ones up there, keeping us free. Thanks,
There's
Representative
a lot of
Brooks
good
from
people, but thank you. I
Washington
appreciate it.
County. How can people follow you?
I don't know.
Social media?
I don't tweet a lot. I don't.
Oh yeah, I remember
Facebook
that.
a lot.
Okay, never mind.
Um,
Just tune into Kim and Carolyn
Straight
Straight
Talk
Talk,
with Kim
and
and
we'll tell you
Carolyn.
what Walt's doing.
I'll tell you this, waltbrooks.com is my website, and I try to post my newsletters there so we can kind of see what's happening with my newsletters. And so,
Okay.
All righty. Have a great session.
Thanks so much
Yeah,
for
I
joining us.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
You bet.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we are joined now by Katy Hall, brand new freshman legislator from up north of where I live. So tell us where you're from.
I live in South Ogden,
South Ogden.
Utah.
Okay.
South Ogden, Utah.
Okay,
So-
you're new. Who did you replace?
Right. I replaced Kelly Miles.
Nice. Okay. Anyway, so that moves the needle a little bit more.
Yes.
More conservative. So,
It does. So, yeah, Representative Hall, there is a bill. Now, I did find it interesting. You have a bill that will repeal the legislation that gave our cities ranked choice voting recently, or many of our cities. I know my city of Draper voted to never use it again. I don't know that it was never, but they're done with it after one time. It was a nightmare.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Good.
they're done. At the same time, the representative of that city has a bill that would add one more option to the types of voting that cities can do, municipalities can do in this pilot project. So tell us about your bill. Tell us about the conversations that you're having with people and how it's being taken. And
well, and by the way, can I just insert real quick that we had a previous podcast that we brought in some doctoral level statistical scientists that went and looked at several of these cities pilots, and we were astounded about some really extremely flawed outcomes. I mean, real statistical analysis, not like tinfoil hat, but these were actual scientists that went, wow,
and not
this
the
is messed up.
analysis that was done by the state, which was, how do you feel after participating in ranked choice voting?
These were very, very troubling outcomes.
Yes. So tell us about it.
So the bill would just repeal the pilot program. And I believe it sunsets in a couple of years anyway, but I think there's enough people that are kind of done with it and don't want to do it anymore that there was cause to at least try to get it done. So we'll see. I mean, it has been assigned to Government Ops Committee. It's not on an agenda yet, so I'm hoping next week sometime it'll be on the agenda.
Okay, so Government Operations Committee. And then for people who maybe don't know what ranked choice voting is, or, why don't you share quickly what it is and why it's not a good thing to keep doing?
So ranked choice voting is when you are going to vote, they have like 5 candidates, and you'll put, I want this one as my first choice, this one is my second choice, third, fourth, fifth, so on. And then they put it in the counter, and an algorithm spits out your winner. And I think the problem with it is there's a couple of problems. First of all, a lot of people get confused by the ballots, right? Because they're just used to voting for one person. So there's confusion there. And then the way the outcome goes, it depends on how it's counted. And I think they have a set way of counting for the municipality, like they'll set it up. But there's been some audits done of elections where if you counted it just a different way, then you would have had a different winner, or the person that actually won wouldn't have even been in third place, like in a regular vote. So there's just all these questions surrounding it, and I just feel like, we had an audit on our elections, and everything's, it's okay. There's some things we're trying to fix, but I think where there's already some election skepticism, like let's just turn it back to the way we've always done it, get some good vibes back with our elections, and then kind of go on from there, you know?
Yeah.
How does it look? What's the feedback you're receiving? What are the other members? Are they supportive?
It's funny. There's some that are, and there's some that aren't. So I don't know. It could go either way. I think there's a lot of people that are, but there's maybe some that are just like, well, let's just let it sunset and then see. So I don't know how it's gonna go, but I'm excited to present it and see and get some people there to help me. There's a lot of people that have reached out actually wanting to come and help and show what they know about it. So
well, we know some statisticians
Well,
that could
and
also come.
She's been talking to Yerji.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yerji's who we had on our show. He did a little, I think he showed some of his slides and talked
Right.
about some of his findings. And, you know, for me, frankly, you know, when we're voting to elect somebody to office, it just seems odd that we would say, hey, let's see if we can come up with some newfangled way to do this. Can we just vote? Like, to me, it just shouldn't be this complicated and difficult. And frankly, non-auditable. You cannot audit ranked choice voting
that's
elections very well.
the other complication is you can't go and verify at the end. So
Yeah, it's not good policy if you can't verify it. And you know, what this is trying to cure is that you may have multiple people on a ballot and not having a majority winner on the first round. You know, there's this thing we used to do called runoff elections. A lot of states still do them. But the people who really don't want runoffs because this really does have a different result. I think historically it's been third-party supporters that have really liked the idea of ranked choice voting or minority parties. But, you know, their excuse is that, well, runoff elections that cost more money.
Yeah.
And it's not, you know, so
but
let's not have integrity.
That's exactly right. And the same people who say it's too expensive to do runoffs, we need to find another way to deal with these issues, are the very same people usually who brought us a greater need for runoffs, who brought us the issue of plurality in primaries.
That a governor could win a nomination with less
than 40% of the vote. Yeah. It would be all the same supporters who complicated it and now come in, not all the same, but some of the same, and now come in with a new solution to fix the problem that they created. Whereas if we just got rid of SB 54 and signature gathering in primaries, we would do away with this.
Well, I think, going back to just the runoff, you know, having a runoff, we should be represented by people who were put there by a majority or very close to a majority of people.
And there are some bills that deal with that this year. So Representative Kyle, who is new.
Yeah, he's doing a runoff bill, I think, for the primaries. So
yes, I like it. We should have him on.
Nice.
So, okay, we will let you get back to grandchildren. Thank you for joining us, Representative.
You're welcome.
Okay, have a good night. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, so let's talk about what you ran against Jeff Stenquist.
Yeah.
You came extremely close.
Extremely close.
Just by what, less than, or like right around 300?
Less than 300.
Less than 300 votes. Okay, but
in
anyway,
a very high turnout election, over 6,000 primary voters.
Yeah. And really lots and lots and lots of first-time voters were in that race.
Yes.
Anyway, but so now what's he doing now with his, with that win?
Oh, yeah. We are running legislation that adds, oh my gosh, approval voting, which I talked to Yerji. I used to know. I don't remember. I talked to Yerji. He said it does solve some of the
Yerji
anomalies.
Is our statistician.
He's our statistician, our PhD who knows math stuff.
Math stuff. He knows math stuff.
In fact, we have this constant discussion. My son, I don't know, he's a junior, and he's in a physics calculus class, like a joint physics calculus. And we have this discussion physics is just science and calculus is just math. Just call it what they are. It's your science and math class, kid. It's no different than anybody else's. Anyway, so yes, Yerzy knows math stuff.
Okay.
And he said it does deal with some of these anomalies, but it doesn't take care of all of the problems. But I don't remember what the system is. Approval voting.
But so if it doesn't,
it's just another newfangled thing.
If it doesn't make it more simple, more transparent, and obviously fair, then let's not complicate our elections all that much more. The problem we have with ranked choice voting already is that it is so complicated. I know Representative Jordan Tusher of South Jordan, and he also is adding kind of a new thing, but we're going to have him on in a future podcast, in the next one, I think, to talk about that and have him explain what in the world that thing is. But anyway, our elections, we do, I think to Representative Hall's point, at the very least, we have a crisis of confidence.
Absolutely.
In our elections. Yep. And I referenced tinfoil hat, no disrespect, because I am in a lot of that space of a lack of trust in some of our elections, in some parts of our electoral systems around the country, in some places. And so no disrespect to that, because I'm a little bit there.
Yeah.
So we do, whether or not you believe there's problems with election integrity or problems with fraud or stealing the vote or whatever, we do have a crisis of confidence in our elections. And we've seen sometimes our state leaders really try to crack down on vilifying that lack of confidence instead of opening things up more, exposing things more. There's been more of an effort to shut down. And when has that ever worked?
Yeah, well,
with restoring confidence, to just vilify the people who are asking questions.
Yeah, that is so confusing to me. What kind of a mind one would have to have when you go to an individual with a reasonable question and their response is,
"You're crazy.
Everything's fine. You're crazy. Sit down and shut up.
And you are a threat to democracy."
Yeah, like what? How does your brain work? Because it works very differently from mine.
Yeah.
Because mine, if I have answers that are obvious to me, it's really easy for me to present those to you because I'm an intelligent thinking human being.
Yeah.
It's very easy for me to present those to you, show you evidence, and you can accept it or not, but I've done my part and I've done everything I can to help you understand what's here. And if you're somebody who will look at evidence fairly, then you'll accept that and go on your way. But anybody who says, "Sit down, shut up, you crazy person, I'm not doing anything wrong," is somebody who should never be trusted.
Okay, now, since we talked about
That's bizarre.
We've now learned that it wasn't just government saying you're crazy, shut down. They shut you down in spaces like Twitter and.
But wait, but that was government.
That's right.
Yeah,
that government.
Government. That was a public-private partnership of censorship.
Right. Okay, so we have some legislative session. We're second weekend, and things are really flying. So we're trying to come to you again with doing multiple episodes to bring in a lot of our legislators and talk about the bills that are flying really fast. So tune in. And
thanks for joining us for another episode of Straight Talk with Kim and Carolyn. Thank you, our producer, Fosmo.
Next time, I'm bringing tinfoil.
There's some in the closet over there.
Tinfoil. Okay. I thought it was going to be Armenian food because we've heard that before too.
Yes, we have.
So
wrapped in tinfoil.
There you go.
So you can please follow us.
Dolmates wrapped in tinfoil. Dolmas.
Okay. You can find us anywhere you find your podcasts: Facebook, YouTube, Rumble,
because we get throttled in some of the other places.
This is
start
true.
looking for us on Rumble.
Yeah,
and
this is true. Yeah, join us next time.